Scano, good evening. Hello. It's so nice to see everyone. We were just getting caught up in the back room and are all excited to see everyone join us this evening. So, welcome back to Remember When. It's really nice to see Grandmother Renee Thomas Hill and Neil, Uncle Neil Moneg again. And welcome, everyone.
Welcome to another. I hope it's a long winter because we got lots of stories. We have a lot of sharing, and most of all is preparing us. And that's what our grandparents, when this season comes, it tells us we must get ready. So I hope every one of you are preparing your bodies physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually because this is what we have those different seasons. It's always preparing ourselves. And so right now we were always told we had to build up our immune system. Yeah. That's why we have big ceremonies right now, because of the food that we receive from creation. And that was a very important um, gift to us. It was the Creator's gift to ensure that we were going to be well. And so I like us to share our thoughts on that because I've been asked these questions lately. How did you get ready for the winter? And so I thought we would share this with everyone tonight. And so I'm going to turn it over to Neil. Did you notice we're dressed like twins or triplets?
But I look like I got a collar. Look, I changed my style now. I went from the cultural to the Christian now. I turned over the leaf.
No,
Ah,
Neil, you're just a young teenager wearing those, what do you call them?
turtlenecks.
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 Yes.
I got to keep those hickeys hidden. Oh man, I remember those days when I was young.
Now you'll have
I
a
just
good
want to start
smile.
off. I just want to start off this evening with a tune, and I just want you all to remember about the children that never made it home. And this song talks about the children. It talks about how children are prepared for the winter, how they're prepared for the fall, the little ones. And they're the main ones that we not target. I want to say they're the main ones we got to make sure that they survive through the winter. And when we talk about young children and the babies, I have my two grandchildren here, my youngest, in the or outside now playing. They're just visiting. They come and cook for their papa. And anyway, the song it talks about the children. It talks about how we do quada in my language. We do quada. That means let us help them. Let us get them ready. Let's get them ready for those things that are about to come. Let us get them ready. Get their things ready for the winter. They were always the first ones that got all the things that they will need. Grandparents, when the grandparents I remember living with my grandparents in the wintertime. We lived with them for a while, and everything was being prepared. And they lived, like I said, they had gardens here, and those gardens and those root. I guess they called them root cellars, but it was in behind my great uncle's house, and that's where they put everything that they would need for the winter. And I remember everything getting ready, and but then we got to remind ourselves that we don't let us help our children now. Let us get ready. Let us prepare that. Let's get this road rolling because fall is coming quick. And in that song, it talks about that. And when I hear the stories about the young children that are being found that never made it home, I think about how this song came and how it came at a meeting with I remember talking about this one at a meeting with the CAS family service workers and the chiefs, and they were talking about the children. And when this song came, it was, it was on, I don't know, it was in a building where I could hear the voices behind me to my back right. And I just happened to turn back and there was no one there, but I could hear them. And as I sat back to face the table again, as they were talking, and that song came again, I could hear the voice coming with the song. All of a sudden, I just turned back again to look back and see, and there was no one there. It was at the Rama Hall, and there was a stage back there with the curtain drawn, and there was no one there. Then I turned back and sat down, and this time I kind of put my right ear towards the sound, leaning kind of like this, and I could hear the song. As I could hear the song, I could hear the two people in the room. One was a family service worker, and one of them was a CS worker. They were getting a little bit hostile with each other, getting angry. Finally, as the elder there, I stood up and I had to stop the argument, and I told them, I said to them, this song has just arrived. And I told them the words. And I said, Wido Kwada, let us help our children. We Jiwada, let us go with our children. Jimanada, let us hold our children. And Zagada, which means let us love our children. And in that time when that song came, they were arguing on who's what and what. But they forgot the actual real value of what they were talking about was the children. Yet they were arguing over something. And yet, so when this song came, I sang it to them. And that's the first time I ever sang that song was at that meeting and understanding it. So when that song came, everybody stopped and listened to it. Now that song is part of the group I elder for, which is called DBCFS. And in that song, we those children that never made it home, we sing to the spirit. We sing to the part that when they were children, they never grew up to be adults. We think about the spirits of those ones. We give them thanks for being here for a little while and showing us where they were and knowing the true value of what it is, what life really means in our First Nation communities. We don't quite have no dream nan. 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 Where no Jimmy Don, way-ho. And that's a song for the children. And when I think about when I sing that song, sometimes it brings tears to the eyes because one day when we first heard when I first heard about the first finding, I believe it was 700. Was it the first or was it two something? But anyway, when they first that first time they found them, and this is my little guy. Hold on, I'll lift him up so everybody can see him. Oh, this is him. This is my grandson. Say hi. Hello there. This is grandmother Renee, and that's Jody. And in behind that screen, there are about 2,000 people. No, don't touch that computer. Okay, I'm gonna let you go. Okay. All right. I'll see you later. Bye bye. Papi Minoa. That's my grandson. 200 pounds. Only 2 years old. No. So when I just want to let you know exactly, about what I saw that day, and I first started thinking about that. I was looking out my bedroom window, and all of a sudden, this vision of this young lady came into play. I could actually see her. She had black hair. I believe she had like a sweater on, a skirt, and I could see her face. And her haircut was like this. It came across the top like this and came straight down and back like that. I don't know how old she was. But when I thought about her, and I saw her vision, I saw the vision of her. She had a smile on her face. Mm-hmm. And that smile represented probably saying, thank you. Thank you for remembering us. Thank you for trying to bring us home. Thank you for the kindness. And so that song I just sang talks about those children the same way. Wido Kwada, let us help them as much as we possibly can. Let us understand when they look at us, they don't look at us for nothing. Let us look at them from a point of view as Creator would look at them. The kindness that Creator showed. And then Wijiwada. Wijiwada means let us go with them. Let us go with them. You see the little babies, when they start to crawl, when they start crawling, they're all over the place, right? When my granddaughters were first brought here, when they started crawling, it was the grandpa that chased them and the grandmother right behind them. And we were going with them. They were inviting us to go with them to protect them so they don't get hurt. And that's how that song came. Wijiwada, let us go with them. Jibnada meaning is holding, right? Means holding. Let us hold them. Jibnada, let us hold them and give them that big hug they so richly deserve. And because they need that once in a while, just like we need it from our older folks. I'm the youngest grandfather around, by the way. I turned 36 the other day. But in that time period, like when we were our children, everything comes into play because you can feel them, and all of a sudden they'll pull away from you, and then they're gone, and they start playing, and they look back to see if you're watching, and they do. They look back because we're there, they're sitting there. But that greatest gift of all the last part of that song, Zagada, let us love our children. The greatest gift is to love our children, no matter how old they get. Even our grandparents when they get old, because later on they kind of become like little children again. And then we have to let them know that we love them.
Mhm.
For me, I have no grandparents anymore. My mom and pop, my dad are gone, and my aunties and uncles, they're all gone. That's why I wish this thing was over, this virus, so I can dash off the Six Nations, go call out for Renee. Renee, where are you? Hey, I want to give you a hug. Like that, right?
Oh.
And there's that hug, see? Spiritual hug. But and so in that song, it talks about not only the children, it talks about all of us as well, because we are children.
Mhm.
We may grow and get taller, some of us. Some of us may be only 5'2", eyes are blue. 5'2", eyes are blue. I don't want to get into that part. It sounds like I'm that old now or something. I know some of those songs. Don't worry. I used to hear them on the radio. Anyway, getting ready for winter, getting ready for the fall, really. It's now beginning. The weather's starting to change, and things are starting to happen. Those little computers in our back of our heads are starting to kick in and preparing for winter. I remember when I was living alone and I was by myself, living in my mom's house. I was always told to prepare for everything, to buy things that I needed for the winter. And I was told exactly what I should buy. But back then, I didn't really listen because I was too busy being an alcoholic. But I did remember some of those things that I was told. And I did buy what I needed. There was a few times when I ran out. But the biggest thing, though, is to keep yourself warm during the winter. And that was the wood. And we prepared for our wood. We'd be preparing now for the winter with our wood. Even last year, we were prepared for this year.
Yeah.
Because when I used to cut wood before my wife told me to stop cutting, because I was getting too old to do that, I would cut a year's wood for the following year. I'd already have wood for the winter from the previous cut. So I just keep adding to the pile. And that would last us all winter. I would turn on the stove and sometimes I get tired of having the stove going. I just let it go out and turn on the heat. Little button, turn it on, up to 20 degrees, maybe 25, and it'd be warm. But then after a while, we'd shut it off and put the stove back on. But we'd always have food supply. My wife and I would always supply everything. We'd have everything here. We had a freezer. We filled it with meat that we needed. I raised two girls in this house and making sure that they were fed. Making sure when the cold weather hit, we'd always watch for the ice. We'd always watch for the ice. Back then, when we had ice, it was thick. We were able to understand how thick that ice would get, because we were told those things by our uncles, our aunties that lived on the island, because everybody here was an auntie and uncle. Everybody here was an auntie and uncle. They always looked after each other. When they said, don't cross on the ice, you crossed on the ice, you would be reprimanded later on. They would say they would say different kind of words to you, but I wouldn't repeat those again. That's how mad they got, because you crossed the ice when you weren't supposed to. So those are the things that we were prepared for. We got ready for those things because back in the day when the boat only had, I forget now, 6 runs a day. First one would leave at 7:30. It would tie up. The final run would be at 6, and that would be it. Then we were here for the winter. ice came, the boat wouldn't go anywhere. But a lot of things that a lot of our stuff, we never really grew up with some of the stuff that a lot of the mainland people. It was different. It's always different here because when those high winds came and the boat couldn't go over, we were here and we did things that would keep us warm. Fall though, oh, I remember one fall here. Oh man, they called it Achievement Day. That's when everybody had those gardens. Eh?
Mhm.
Achievement Day always fell on I think it was on an Easter weekend. I think it was. I think it was on an Easter weekend that used to have those. I'll have to find out. But people would bring all their things to the corner. We call it the Four Corners, where our old community hall was. Or I mean, it's still there. It's still there, and everybody would have everything there. They would have their preserves, like their everything, jams, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries. Then you'd see all these pies sitting there. Then you see all the vegetables sitting in a basket somewhere on the other end. You just walk around and look at them. And those were from the gardens that people grew here. And some of the stuff they would share with the older folks that couldn't do the things for themselves. They got them ready. And they made sure that they had everything they needed. I remember when I don't know, I can't remember his real name. His name was Peter Peters, I believe. He was an older man. Oh, I don't know how old he was back then, but he was quite old. You'd see him walking around, and you'd see him carrying a bag. I remember him. I remember him stopping at my auntie's house. And gave the bag to my aunties, and there was I don't know, I forget what they were called, but they looked like berries, but and he had them there, and they took them, and they would make like a sauce out of them, like a jam. Eh?
Mhm.
Oh, was that ever good? I remember that. But for me, for remember wins was not really. It's only what I remember that I was taught that I had to prepare for the winter. Even though I was drinking, I did prepare. I got everything I needed. And then when I grew up and had a family, finally sobered up, had my own family, I remembered those things. I remember the first thing that we paid for was the hydro. I made sure that we had enough wood for the winter because the hydro here would go out quite a few times during the winter. So we were good. We made sure we had enough batteries for the flashlights. We had enough candles. And all those things that were needed to keep warm and make sure that everything was there, right? You'd hear the wind howling through outside, and we were nice and more toasty warm inside with a nice fire going in our basement stove, wood stove. We looked at our shelves are filled with canned stuff that we needed. Our freezer was full. And, we were ready. And there were some people that weren't. There were some people that weren't able to do that. I remember, but when people wanted to get something, we used to take a few things. But a lot of people today, I think, has forgotten that way of life. I think getting ready. There's a few, maybe, I don't know. Maybe there is a few still, but not very much. But I wish, I wish I had really been taught how to really put a garden together. Well, I know how to put a garden together. It's just something that we never really grew up with. We were never shown how to put a garden together. But with grandmother Renee here, I hear her stories about her garden. Every time when she talked about her garden, I wanted to sneak over to Six Nations, raid her garden, and run out of the garden. But that's the thing. There's a lot of people I envy. I envy a lot of people because back then they were taught how to work in the bush. They were taught all those things, and that I never thought of that for me. But I do remember some of the things that other people used to do. When somebody ran out of the wood, you'd see somebody taking wood to that house, making sure they didn't freeze in the wintertime. Because times were hard here during the winter. We had to get everything that you needed that's going to keep you warm. I think that was the first thought was right there, was the wood. Because when you live on an island and we're surrounded by water, it's a lot colder here than it is on the mainland side. And we had to get ready. Everybody would have wood. One day my neighbor came over and says, I ran out of kindling. You got any? Oh yeah, we got lots. I gave her a box of kindling that lasted her almost 2 months. I remember that. She was my neighbor that lived over just to the west side of my mom's house. And then when she needed help, I went over to help her. But I think the greatest gift that we have is our elders. The elders who know about that life, that still know it, that we need to talk to them more now. Especially this time, at this time, the COVID time, this is something where we need to get together. Not as one community getting together. I mean, all communities getting together. Having a nice little chat and say, okay, this is what we can do for each other. Because I remember some of the times when the old folks would sit down and talk. They would talk not about who got the best TV or anything. They'd talk about getting ready for fall. There was a conversation around it. I remember some of those conversations, watching them sitting there talking about that. These are when they spoke the language, and I could understand it because I spoke it as well. Aha, Gawidokwamin, they'd say. Okay, we're going to help them. So they were talking about a couple of families that were unable to do anything because I believe one of the ladies lost her husband. So that was one of the conversations, and where people were going to help this woman because she had a couple of children, so that she needed help for that winter time, for that fall and winter time. And that's how they did it. That's how they prepared. That's how I seen them talking. They'd go visit each other and they'd talk a little bit, and then they'd go disappear, and then all of a sudden this lady was taken care of. Wood supply. She needed something in the town. People would help her with that. I remember that one winter time we were locked in. That's when we had that heavy snowfall. And there are pictures of it. The road that goes from where we get on the boat at get off at Cedar Point, they call it, the mainland side. We could not get to town. You know what the men did? They walked on the deep snow where the road was. And luckily for the army, when they had these trucks that had the snowblowers in front of them, that's what they used to clear those roads. And there are pictures of it at the snowbanks. When they finished that, the snowbanks were probably about 6 feet higher than a 6-foot man. So our roads were covered. You could actually see the tunnel going down that road. Mm-hmm. But our men walked to town to get groceries. Any supplies that anybody needed, they would go for their own family and other families that requested something from them. I remember being told that. They walked across on the ice. that then they had to walk on top of the snow in order to get to that town where they were. And Penetang by car is about 15, 20 minutes. But again, that's one of the stories that I've heard was those ones. How they used to do that. It wasn't just one man walking. There was about 6 or 7, maybe even 8 to 10 that all walked together to go to town. They helped each other going to town. It was only the men only. Because those men looked after us, the children. They looked after the families. They looked after the houses to go get those groceries. Flour, baking powder. All those were the necessities to our people back then. And all the stuff that they grew, whatever they grew, they would preserve it or put it in bottles and store it. I remember my mom making in the wintertime. We had, our houses weren't the best houses and weren't the best houses either. Oh wow, like tar paper houses. For insulation, we had shavings. Oh, you could feel that draft come through there. And I was one side of the bedroom one time. I woke up on the other side. Wind blew right through. I'm just exaggerating. But that's how it felt. That's how it felt. But my dad in the wintertime would keep that stove going all night. Mm-hmm. He would keep that going all night. There was no stopping. And then he'd go to sleep and my mom would get up and tell us, help out anyway, dig out the front of the house with the snow. And my dad he was always awake at night in those cold days. When the wind blew, it was cold, he'd be up all night, keeping that fire going, just to keep us warm, safe. Those what I remember. And that's not too far ago. I mean, that's not too long ago. It doesn't seem like that. Because time just kind of not, time is going by fast. But the best thing though is that when people helped each other during those times, getting ready for the fall, wood cutting would begin. Everybody. That was way back then. When I was probably maybe 8 or 9 years old. You'd see them with all the teams of horses heading into the bush, bringing loads of wood down, filling up their basement with wood, kindling everything they needed for that part. Plastic on the windows. Remember that, Renee? They used to plastic the windows to keep the draft from coming through.
Yeah.
Wow. What they did to keep us warm. What the mothers did to make sure that everything was there. Those are the things I remember. Those are the things I remember when somebody when somebody lost a husband or a partner in life, they'd all be there to help that person, that household. So nobody ever went without. They were also being taken care of. But that was the whole community that did that. Mm-hmm. They had food. They had brought a lot of food for them because they knew that there is no man in the house no more because he had passed. I remember my aunties used to go and help out when one of the gentlemen that had passed away here. They'd see them walking down the road, going over there to help the woman, because it was a tough time to lose your partner, especially around that time, the fall and winter. The time of fall is getting ready for the storytelling. The winter time was the main time for the storytelling. I never grew up with the stories. My mom used to read books to us when we were kids, smaller. I used to remember those. She'd always read to us. Fall asleep, wake up in the morning. And in the fall, I remember that garden when my mom and dad planted. And she did all right with it. She did all right with it. But she'd always make this green, that green tomato sauce? They call it chow chow or governor sauce, or they got all kinds of names for it. Oh, she used to make about maybe 12, 15 bottles of that stuff. Oh, the house used to smell good. Then my dad would put it in a box and take it into the cellar, put it on a shelf and leave it there. Then she'd bake whatever, berries, the strawberries that they brought in from Oakville, around where Jody lives. And they would preserve the bit of strawberries because it was a necessity to have those things. And then the green, not the green, the corn relish she made. Oh man, corn relish, pickled beets. Oh my goodness! I remember this one time when she made when she made homemade bread. It was a long day process for her, but she did it. I'd see her take my dad would take that great big, there was a big pot or whatever, a container, whatever that was. And it was like this, it was big, like this over top, right? Just kind of hanging on the edge. She'd take that and mash it down and cut it in half and throw it in a couple of other pans and it'd rise again the second time. And then they'd cut them into loaves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that was one of the remember wins I'll never ever forget, was the smell of that bread. She'd take the bread out of the old wood stove, the old cook wood stove. We all remember those. We all remember. And then she'd pull the breads out, wipe them down with I think she used butter on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then she let them sit. But what she did, though, was take one loaf. She said, "We're only having one loaf tonight," she'd say. And then she'd go downstairs. "Neil, go get that green chow chow, a bottle." "Oh, okay, Ma. Okay, Ma, I'm going." Down the basement, the base cellar, I'd go get a can. My dad would open it up. We'd sit there with that fresh bread baked. Put that green chow chow on there, and that bread would be gone in no time. My dad would say, "How, no," she would say, "No." My dad would say, "Cut another one." "No," my mom would say. "Tomorrow," she'd say. And that's how she did it. She baked her own bread. Fried bread, baked bread. And that was what we had. The food they bought my dad. My dad was always the one who picked up the beans, white beans. And he'd buy about 2 bags. Those big bags they used to have a long time ago? I don't know how big those bags were, but he'd buy 2 of those. And then he'd buy salt pork, potatoes, take them into the cellar and put them there. 2 bags, 2 50-pound bags he'd put in that cellar. And that's where our food was looked after. What else did they used to get? Well, every once in a while they'd buy fruit when they could afford it. That was one of the best things, when they had an orange or an apple or even a banana. But we were satisfied with what we got. We were satisfied with what we got because, so that whole thing, like what she did, I think a lot of the mothers did that. A lot of the mothers did that. And excuse me just for a second. My granddaughter, scared of dogs. Anyway, so I'm gonna take a break here for a moment, and Renee, you want to take over? I'm just going to go check on her.
Okay, thank you.
I shall return.
All right, I know you will. So, yes, those are beautiful memories, and this is so important. I always, being the oldest, I had dual, I guess you say, teachers, dual. Well, I had a lot of time with the grandparents when I was young, and whenever grandma was in need of help, because my grandpa passed over when I was just young, and so I would go and help her. And my grandma is the one that really guided me to understand my parents. And she says, "There's going to be days when um, you're going to be resistant." Yeah, as kids and as teenagers, we don't want to be doing things. But my grandma says, your parents are only getting you ready, getting you ready. She says, because the winters in life, there are many challenges. So if they ask you to get up early in the morning, really early, they're getting you ready for when you become an adult so that you can provide for your children. My grandma helped me understand why chores were important. That's what the English word is today, chores. It was no to us it was our duty. It was our duty to uphold the home. Everyone had to contribute to the maintaining of the home. So my grandma really was very gentle with her words, how she explained. Someday your father's going to do this. Someday your mother's going to do this. But I want you to remember, they're only getting you ready for when they're no longer here. How many of you are getting your children ready for when you're no longer here? How to take care of themselves, how to take care of their homes, how to manage things if something ever come up and there be challenges. So that's what my grandma had explained to me. She says, even going without heat sometimes, it is to strengthen our body. Even all these things that you look at as challenging, she says, one day you're going to benefit from it by going without. You're going to be more resistant. And so I often thought about that because that came to me when I became a grandmother. I was able to share that with my granddaughter. My granddaughter was explaining, "Oh, this pandemic, I wish we never had to go through this." And I said, "No, we have to go through this because we have gotten too soft." And that's what she said. I don't wish him to have we all don't wish our children to have the challenges, but we have to get them ready. And that's what the fall was all about. You have to get your body ready, like doing things, getting up early in the morning, contributing in the house, cleaning your house. And that was building your body up for the winter so that you would never get sick. And that's what my grandma would say. She said, you have to look after your body so that, because a lot of our reserves, they didn't have hospitals and they didn't have doctors. So we have to go off the reserve. And so she said, what your parents are going to be asking you to do is they're just going to build up your body to be resilient. They're going to have you do all these things because it's going to come in handy when those times come. And that's so true. That's so true. We are to let our children have these experience because we have to teach them reality of life. And so we have all these things. What our father, you grumble and complain when you're teenagers, when you're young. But my father would always say, if you go out, you have to get up early in the morning and go to work. And that's how every one of us long time ago, that's how we were raised. If you went out, you couldn't sleep. And that played a very important role because we're all going to become responsible for someone else's life. And that's what it was all about. We were never to be sleeping. Oh my gosh, you could never sleep at our house. Soon as the sun comes up, you had to be up. You had to be getting ready. Sometimes we had to make bread. We had to get the house ready and contribute. We had to get the kids ready. We had to share. And that was one of the things that, we back then we didn't have all the luxuries of having one room for each child. And that's one of the greatest things my grandma explained too. She said, sometimes you're going to be arguing with your brothers and your sisters. She said, but that bed, she says, when you go to bed that night, you may go to bed angry. And so what she said, but you know what? That cold comes in. And that's where you have that bonding. And that played a very important part in our survival was knowing that we had we had someone supporting us. And you know what? No matter how angry you were, you come like this, because a cold would bring you together, and it would make that that relationship. You had support. So there was a lot of things that you don't like to do, but it's just getting you ready, being prepared. And so nature was always telling us how to get ready. So right now, September is they would refer it in the language as getting ready for the cough. How many of you got your bodies built up, your immune system built up? The my father, when fall was coming, because he knew he had to be out there taking care of us. He had to work in all kinds of weathers, and that's what my father he meant for me with my son had to be up early in the morning. He could never stay in bed because he was going to be a father. He had to be out there to provide for his family. And so even us girls, we had to be up early because we had work to do to help each other get ready for school, get ready for to help in the house, because it was a lot of maintaining to do. Yes, we didn't have all the luxuries, but I'm not complaining to this very day because it made me more resilient. It made me appreciate a lot of things, and that's what all these seasons taught me, because of my grandmother gentle way of explaining why it's happening. A lot of people grumble and complain because it gets cold. People complain when it rains, but it's only preparing us. It's always preparing us. The winds that come, lately it's been really storming. Why? It's because we have forgotten to listen. We have forgotten a lot of things. How many of you got ready? So these things, we didn't have a weatherman. We didn't have TVs. We didn't have radios. All we had was that intuitiveness and learning how to be ready. How to be ready when there's going to be a change just like that. We would watch the trees and the leaves, and we would watch the animals. We would watch what kind of winter it was. You know, how many had a real good garden? Well, a real good garden really means you were given abundance to take care of yourself, to preserve it, and to be prepared. That's what really Indian time was about. It wasn't being late. No, it was being prepared well in advance. That's Indian time. That's the true meaning of Indian time. And that's how my dad explained. If you're to be at the doctor's at, say, 10 o'clock, my dad would have us there at 9 o'clock, just in case. So we would have to leave about 8 o'clock, just in case something happened. And so these things are having us to be prepared. And so, especially shoveling. Oh, you have to shovel in the wintertime. And you never had to, my grandma said, you may complain, but you got to remember, you're getting physically fit. You're getting physically fit. And so what it was getting you ready for is, my grandma, she walked, I would say, quite a distance away. I wouldn't know how much in miles. Well, we had lived in the upper end of the reserve, and my grandma lived down on the lower part of the reserve. But you know what? My grandma walked. My grandma walked. And so that's what we have forgotten. How are we preparing our bodies? Are we out walking? We're having a lot of health problems, our knees, our hips, because we're not preparing for the change. We always have to be prepared. Prepared, and that is my dad. I knew my dad would look at the changing of the leaves and everything, and he felt it in himself, and he would say, "Oh, I got Ma, get me the onions." He would cut them, and he would have them sandwiches. Oh, and he says, "Ma, get me some sardines." You see, he was building up his immune system, because my dad, there was 12 of us, but my dad, he always made sure that there was food on the table. So that meant he had to be out there working. And so that's what he give to my siblings, and that was what I'd give to my children. You see, I went to the city just like everyone else. but I missed the country because the country was telling me everything, how to be ready. Because in the city, all I heard was sirens and fire trucks and all these different things. I was missing the sound of nature telling me to get ready. This is why the frogs come. This is why the bird, the robin sings. This is why we have bees. This tells us what how we are to get ready, how to prepare ourselves for that time. And so we finally moved home because I was missing. I was missing. And that's what my mom said. She said, "You come home. You have to come home. You have to bring these kids, my grandchildren, on a reserve so that they can get ready and be prepared." And so I had to do that. I had to, we came from a place, just like Neil said, you turn on the heat. We moved into a place that was an old farmhouse, and we had to break the ice to draw water. And this is from one change to the next. My children had to do that. We had to go out and get wood, cut wood. So I know how to cut wood because I saw my dad do that. I saw how my dad took care of us. And we also had the boys, they had to take turns because dad would be always having to work. So it was the boys' responsibility to be, as they say, alternate and put the wood in the stove. Sometimes they would fall asleep and I would wake up and I'd go and put another log in for them because that was what you did. You shared responsibilities in the house. And remember how I said we didn't have that much blankets in our house. We didn't have insulation like it used to, like they have today. The wind, the snow would come right in from the cracks in the windows, but we were resilient. We were resilient because we got ready in the fall. We got ready. We got ready by doing these things that people complain about as chores. And this is how my grandmother explained. Your body needs to get ready. Your mind needs to get ready. You need to get ready to understand that what it's doing is just to get you to be well for the coming of the changing of the seasons. And so all this food right now, we would be doing ceremonies, our big ceremonies. We would come and we would thank them because all these foods, this is why we need to tell those stories of our food, why they came, and their purpose was to maintain and keep us well. They were to prepare us for any challenges. And this is why I see a lot of health problems is because we've lost our relationship with our food. Eating the food that came to save us, to help us to survive, how to think of survival skills. And this is what was so important. This is why our men went hunting. This is why they look for, we had fast food. We had fast food. Dad said they had to run after it. So hunting, all that was very important. I never had store-bought meat because my father would always be out there. We had muskrat, we had jackrabbits. Oh boy, they were good, delicious. We would have deer, but we never had meat every day. That's not your body. There are complements of different foods, and that's why beans played a very important role. And we were never to complain about the food that was put in front of us. My grandma would go like this: "Don't ever offend that food. Don't ever, um, as they say, break its spirit, because that food, once it hears you saying those words, it will pull itself back, and it won't be there to help you when you need all that food." All that food that is out there, those roots, that is what is needed to help us. All these food is to help us to overcome these health problems that we have today. And this is how my grandmother explained it to me. And it's very nice to have a grandma around because she explains what your parents would say. Now you got to do this. And you would go, you kind of growl. But grandma would come in and say, they're only helping you to get ready for life. So you must get up there and do these things, because you know what? When they're gone, you'll know how to do all these things. You'll remember that. You'll remember how you had to get ready physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's how my grandma, she was able to tell me. She was that middleman to help me to understand my parents, why my parents were asking us to do these things. And so she was saying, don't, one day you'll understand. One day you'll be thankful that they did this for you. And sure enough, I said, Grandma, I spoke to her because she's in the spirit world. I says, when I became a parent, I said, that is so true, Grandma. And the day that my father got sick, one of the greatest things that I did is to say, I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry that I was, as you say, difficult. I now understand why you did all these things for me. You were helping me to prepare for the winters of my life, for the spring of my life, for the summers of my life, the plenty and the not so plenty. And so I'm very grateful that all these things that you have taught me. You even taught me how to be firm, and that was the hardest thing for a parent, for me to say no. And that is so true. When a parent says no, that is the absolute, as they say, gift of love. Because what they mean is, that's how my grandma explained, you don't understand and know all about life right now. And they have seen that, so they want to put that protection around you. Just that's why they say no. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. But one day they're going to say, okay, now that I've given you all these tools, now you can go out. You can do these things. I felt like Cinderella when I was growing up. My dad would say, you have to be home by 12. And I said, but Dad, he says, no, no buts. You got to be home. And sure enough, because all those teachings it validated how important our body needs rest. How important our body needs rest. This is a time when our body heals and gets ready. Because they tell us that being up all night, we need almost 72 hours to recover, our body to recover, to rebuild up its immune system. Isn't that amazing? You wonder why your parents tell you to go to bed? You wonder why your parents tell you to get up? You wonder why they tell you to do this? It's only preparing you for the seasons that is changing. And so we have to eat these foods that is going to get us ready for winter. And I remember my dad and my mom, we would have assembly line because there was so many of us. What we would do is, I just love it when we had beets. We have someone was scrubbing the potatoes. Beets, and then we have someone cutting the caps off, as they say, and then another one slicing them, and then the other one putting them in a jar. My grandma had a pantry. Well, it was her basement, and she had everything. It was just like being in a store. And that's the most beautiful thing today, because I got a lot of tomatoes last year. I got a lot from my garden. And so I had, me and my great grandchildren, we did a lot of preserving last year. And then you can give them as gifts to help someone else out. And so these are the things that was, as we did a long time ago, helping others get through the seasons. So even they talk about the cough season. How many were out collecting the medicines? That's another thing we had to do, was collect this medicine for the winter time when our children would get the throat flu, coughs, whatever. We had to get even the elderberries. We would have to pick those elderberries and make it like a cough syrup so that our children would be taken care of. We had to make the medicines. We had to gather the medicine, dry them, so that when we need them, they would be there. None of our people do this today. I mean, Now they're coming back, and that's so beautiful about it. They're coming back to being a pioneer, the pioneers of life, because that's what is this pandemic is teaching us again. How to be a survivor, how to be um, capable of overcoming anything, especially to be resilient. The food, how many of you are eating the right foods for the winter? Notice how the winter brought, I mean, how the season brought us these different foods. And you notice how many of you ate a lot of corn? Well, every season has its abundance, and that's how you feel. It's just like you're putting all this good medicine in you, and all parts of your body, all your cell they're getting to be healthy. The organs, the liver, the kidneys, they're being taken care of. And so the other thing that we had to do was, when you ate all this like corn or whatever was fresh, you always seem to have the diarrhea. Well, that's another thing. It was to clean you out to get you ready for winter. Remember taking cod liver oil? Well, that's one of the best things that we could have ever gotten, because our bodies need this for the winter, just like the animals. The animals know how to get these medicine. This is why we had to have fish. This is why we had to have those different kind of animals, because it would prevent a lot of health problems for the winter. All the aunties and the grandmothers that knew how to knit, they were getting busy. But because we had such a big family, some of us had to use socks for our gloves. Do you remember wearing socks for your gloves when you ran out of mittens? And so um, those were things how we improvised, always improvising. And it was like someone in the neighborhood, or maybe an elderly lady, but she would be busy knitting, and so she would say, she'd drop them off, and she said, "Here for the kids." And it was so nice just to receive a pair of gloves, for the winter. A lot of us didn't have boots, so we did the best we could in all kinds of weather. And knowing what how our parents guided us, giving us these instructions, was just so helpful. And as I said, I did that for my children. I did that for my children because my mother said, how are they going to know reality of life? So my children, they went through almost similar things. They never got in a bus to go to school. They had to walk a whole concession and more to go to school in all kinds of weather. It was grooming them for later on in life when they would become parents, how to take care of their children. So today, our children do not get in enough walking, and they're sitting too much. And this is why the pandemic has made a big impact on us, because we are not getting our bodies prepared. The breathing, preparing, we're not doing, and that's one of the things that is needed. We need to be doing more. And that's what, because when we're doing, we're honoring our body. It's in ceremony. This is why it plays a very important role when your parents say, you need to clean your room, you need to do this, you need to do that. It's only so that you can build up resistance in your body, because your body's not going to stay forever young, as we find out when we get older. We have to um, keep ourselves um, active. And I deliberately put my driveway back so that whenever I have groceries or whatever, I have to carry them, so that my body is still going to be able to do these things. Walking is a very important part. Playing is That's what we need to do, is play for the in the winter. And that's how I was so grateful. My dad, he give wintertime was our time of family games, board games. We had crokinole. We had all these different kinds of games that we would be playing. It would just seem like a recreation place, what they would have today. But that's how my parents kept. And with stories, oh my gosh, we had stories. My dad grew up with stories. And his brother was really good at storytelling. That's where I learned all my stories was from my uncle, because he would come to grandma's and he we didn't have any TV, and so he would be telling me stories till I fell asleep. So these stories also helped us to remember how to get ready for changes of life. That's what they were all about. That's why we have different seasons. That's why we have the different moons. Have a different name for each moon. They have a different moon name for them, because it is helping us to get ready. Get ready. And so, even to this very day, winter, every season plays a very important role in my life. I am so grateful for each season. When I see the leaves turning, I don't get sad, because it's just like, wow, so many gifts we've been given this year. It's just like gratitude. Then we're going to have winter. That's another beautiful gift, because I grew up in a time when it was cold. How many of you take cold showers? Are able to take cold showers? We had just that little wood stove, and we would have to be very quick and taking a shower. Taking a bath. And so these things played a very important role in preparing us for this changing of the season. So look at what are we doing to our bodies? Are we preparing it for the winter? Are we getting ready so you don't catch a cold? So you don't have health problems? So I take I have a different tea every day, and these teas are from the plant life that I have put in jars. So every day there's a different tea. Maybe mullein one day, maybe comfrey one day, maybe um, spearmint, any mint tea, whatever, because all those are meant to build up my immune system. And so this is what the changing of the season was all about for us, to be resilient and to be prepared so that we can. And one of the most beautiful things that I like to say is dance. Dance. That helps us to prepare for our life. Why do you think we are all good dancers? It's because we learn how to release a lot of frustration. We learn how to let things go. My mom and my dad they are still talked about how they danced together. It was just like they were one. And so dancing was the way I was taught by my grandma how to prepare my spirit, how to prepare my spirituality. Because as a woman, I would be overwhelmed sometimes by being a single parent, that I would be overwhelmed sometimes. So my grandma had taught me, my other grandmother had taught me about dancing. She said, whenever you feel in that place, she says, put on a good tune, and pretty soon you'll forget how that all those things, those worries, all accumulated in your mind, because you flushed it out of your mind, and you became, as you say, happy again. And you build up your immune system. The more depressed you become, the more you're vulnerable to sickness. So one of the things is that we have so many opportunities that doesn't cost a cent. And that is so amazing that it's still here today, that we can build up our immune system. We can build our bodies up for changes that is going to happen. And one of them is called acceptance. Acceptance. Acceptance what happens, and change it to make it good in your life. That's what the old people would say. We've had pandemics, we've had a lot of trials and tribulations, but one of the most important thing is this frame of mind, what they call having a good mind. Having a good mind. That's it's people say it's hard. Well, it's hard because you use the language. It's hard. You have to learn how to use the language. I can. I care. Because once you start using the language, I don't care, that breaks down your immune system for being prepared. And that's how my grandmother taught me was be careful of your language. So one of the things is I have to remind myself. And I'm glad Neil mentioned the children because that's very important. How are we to prepare our children for those challenges that they're going to go through? Is that we never say goodbye to them. That's what my grandma would be very adamant about. You don't tell your children goodbye. You tell them, I'll see you later. I'll see you later. And you always send them off with a hug. That's why I do that. It's in me to intuitively to be giving a hug because that plays, I'm preparing someone for their day, whatever is going to be out there, their challenges, I'm going to give them a hug. I give my grandchildren a hug. I give my friends, my neighbors, I give strangers complete hug because I want to prepare them for the changes that is coming, that they can be resilient. And so these are just some simple things that won't cost anything, but they're there. This is how our families, this is how our grandparents, when they didn't have all those luxuries, this is how they prepared us to be resilient, that we are here today. We are here today because of them learning how to be, as they say, resilient and going with the change, going with the flow, accepting the different seasons, knowing that listen to nature. Nature shows us how to get ready. So I hope you are getting ready. Your cupboards are getting ready. Learn how to adapt to our traditional foods again because they are they have been sent here to us from the spirit, the sky world, and they still have that instruction to make us well. So remember that when you get those traditional foods, this is what it's going to manifest in your body, is to build you up for the lean times. Our body was meant to go through lean times. And so that's acceptance. So know that this is why we fast. We need to fast once in a while. And so this is another way of getting ready for the winter, cleaning ourselves out, learning how to detoxify ourselves because we need to get ready for winter. We need to make sure our heads are going to be cleared of mucus, of all these things that virus. We need to clean out our stomach. That's the most important thing. When a child gets sick, you have to clean out their stomach because there's waste in their stomach, and this is where the bugs are living. So we need to clean out our children so that they can be ready for the changing. Because where the little kids get, they get a lot of colds being in school. So those are one of the things is learning how to get your child ready for the school term because they're going to get sick because people have forgotten how to do these things. Have them, I know they call them vitamin pills, but be careful because you can make a tea that a child can take just like this, and it does wonders for them. So I've said enough. So I'm going to turn it over and pass the feather to Neil. I have shared what I needed to share.
I'm just going to say, ditto. Yeah, a lot of what my good friend here has said is kind of touched on a little bit of some of the things that I remember being told too, and that's again like getting those foods ready, especially around this time now, the fall, and this harvesting time. As my friend here, my grandmother Renee, was talking about the foods and the gardens and stuff, and all of a sudden this thing these voices come and they tell me to mention that, when you have your tobacco, that sacred gift that's given to you at the very beginning of time, that harvest time comes, and you take your tobacco to that field where your garden is. And they say that when you take your tobacco in your hand, that you walk it out. You don't carry the bag. You already have it in your hand as you walk towards your garden. And then there, when you arrive, you give thanks. You look around and raise your hand with that tobacco. Give thanks to all of creation.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at these beautiful plants that are there, the cucumbers, the potatoes, the corn, the squash, the beans, the tomatoes, all those, if you have all those, you look at them and you see how beautiful they are. It kind of reminds you of that garden when the original, when man first set his foot upon the earth at that very beginning of time. He saw the garden. He saw what Creator had put together, along with Mother Earth, and along with Mother Nature, gathering all these things. And when they prepared, before you talk to the plants, and give thanks because they're there. They're getting ready to feed you for the winter. They're ever giving you that energy that you're going to need through that winter time. And then once you finish talking with the plants, you look at to Mother Earth, and you give thanks to her also for allowing us to use her to put these seedlings in so that we have that food. And then the next foremost person that you talk to is our Creator. Give him thanks to him. They say that there's an order of way of doing things sometimes. It depends on who the teacher is and who the planter is and who the harvester is. They all come together, and then they look and they do all this. And as my friend was speaking, those things started popping up, and how they used to do that. Go by and again, don't touch that yet. Don't touch that. Don't touch the garden just yet. We got to get ready. And I remember a gentleman telling me that they used a while ago. They talked about doing ceremony before the harvesting began the next day. They would do that fire, that sacred fire. They light. He said, I can't remember who that guy was. It's been a while, and I thought, wow, I wish we could have done that when we were here on the island, because like my friend Renee says, that we are forgetting that way of life. We are forgetting about the ceremonies that need to be done before the planting, getting the ground ready. There's a ceremony for that. There's a ceremony when we talk to these seeds and when we have them in our hands and we say, this is what we need from you. We will watch you and guide you through. It's kind of like the creation, right? It's like Creator guiding us as we walk along this daytime path every day of our lives. Because He guides us. He watches us. He makes sure that those things that are on our path, that we can see what's in our path, that we can either go around them, we can go over them, we can go under them. If we carry that medicine, that sacred medicine, those obstacles will kind of go away. Our belief systems have changed as well. They really have changed. We're now believing our more belief system is in our iPads, our cell phones, our laptops. That way of life that our ancestors had is there, but it's kind of like what happened to the dodo bird. That dodo bird disappeared, and that's exactly what's happening with our stuff. That's what's happening to our culture, our traditions, our planting, our harvesting, the way of doing things the proper way. There are still some people doing it. I know there are. There are still some people that know that that part of that teaching, that understanding of this life and the foods, how to prepare. There are still some people who do that. Young people today, oh, I don't have, they need to, stop and think. I remember talking about this once in a workshop about the thinking part of who we are. We're not a thinking nation anymore. I have to believe that because sometimes I forget to think myself. Because it's all in us. We forget to think sometimes. When we get up in the morning, the first thing I believe we should say is thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's all you got to say. We forget to do that too. Me, I forgot this morning. I had to go. I had a medical thing in Barrie this morning. I got there at quarter after 9. My appointment wasn't not till 10:30 because I forgot to think. I forgot to put it in here. And then I wear orthotics too in my shoes. I got up, so I was up early enough.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing and problem is I had to catch the 7 o'clock boat leaving here, not realizing there's another boat I could have caught, the 8 o'clock boat. Again, my thinking process was gone. Today, I threw on my shoes. I went to Barrie. When I took my shoes off to put the new orthotics in there, my old orthotics weren't in the shoes. So I forgot that. And I'm usually all prepared before I go anywhere. I have my keys, my wallet, and my phone on the table before I go. I make sure that I have, everything is in its order before I leave. And then when I go someplace to catch the boat, I always leave 35 minutes before the boat time goes. Because I know I have an appointment, say at 10 o'clock. If I miss that 7:30 boat, I'm going to be late for my appointment. And that's one of the things that we were, like Grandmother Renee was saying, that this is one of the things that we were told about time. You have to be ready to go. You have to be prepared. You have to have your mitts in your pocket, your boots on, your hat on, your scarf, making sure that your wallet is in your pocket, making sure you're ready to go to catch that boat. Because if you miss your time, everything, your whole life changes and you get all angry. You blame the boat drivers. You blame the clock. You blame going to bed late. All those come in play, right? You got to blame somebody but yourself. That's why we're not a thinking people anymore, because we blame everybody else for the mistakes that we make. I admit that I've made mistakes in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I've made plenty of them. And I'm going to tell you all of them, we'd be here for probably 200 years. And you'd laugh at some of the mistakes I've made. And some of those are really laughable. And it's not somebody else's fault, the reasons why I was the way I am. It's me. It's me. I should have stopped drinking when my mom told me to. Maybe I'd be a better man. I don't know. Maybe I had to go through that process
Mm-hmm.
to learn who I actually am,
Mm-hmm.
or who I actually was. Because that's my story. I remember somebody trying to tell my story once. Got my story all wrong and I had to go around correcting it. Jeez. Oh man, Neil, did you really do that? I said, what did I do? Well, so and so told me this. Well, so and so shouldn't have said nothing because he doesn't know exactly what happened. And those are some of the things that our parents prepare us for too.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the things that our parents prepared us for growing up. One of the things that was stressed most of all to me and my family, my younger family, my siblings, was that never laugh at anybody else because it will always come back at you. And one of the stories is the socks on your hands for mitts. We went through that.
Yep.
There was a poor family that we had lived on this island. And I remember they came to school with socks on and everybody laughed at them. Everybody laughed at them. I included.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what happened? They took those off and threw them away. Now they were walking around with their hands were cold.
Mm-hmm.
And our parents found out about that. And we were told that story. You know, when we say we remember wins, those are some of the things I remember that happened. Laughing at poor people. You don't laugh at poor people. You have to go back in your own life to remember what you went through
Mm-hmm.
before you start laughing at somebody. Laugh at yourself first. Laugh at yourself first before you start laughing at somebody else, because that's exactly what we were told growing up. But when you know and understand the meaning of poor, you have to live in my shoes. You have to live in somebody else's shoes who is poor to understand the true meaning of what poor really was for us. We have these houses now that are insulated with 50 feet of styrofoam or something. And and I think back at the house I used to live in. I remember the old log house that I lived with my grandparents in. Same thing. It was cold. It was only a 2-room house, upstairs, downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
You had a stove in the middle of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And up through the floor of the bedroom went the pipe, straight up.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could feel the heat come off of that. And it kept the upstairs warm. My wall was a blanket. That was my wall. My sister lived on the other side of that wall of a blanket or a giant sheet. And same thing with my grandparents. They had their own little spot upstairs. And yet we survived, but we lived in that cold. But they prepared us for that cold. They gave us warm things in the morning to eat. Then they'd send us out in the snow and play. But they'd always say, they always knew exactly what time to call you in the winter time to come out of the cold. When you came out of the cold, they'd give you some, actually I think we got tea. I believe that was given to us, my sister and I, when we were living with my grandparents, tea. Nice warm tea. Then we just sit down well, like I said, it was 2 rooms, right? So we just walked from the kitchen table into the other part of the room. We were in the living room. and yet, what I remember about what my friend Renee has said, a lot of those memories come back of my living with my grandparents. I used to watch my grandfather dig a trail to the outhouse. He always kept that clear in case of you had to run out there real fast in the wintertime. Graham, I gotta go. Graham, I gotta go. And then all of a sudden she'd rush you out the door, down the path, into the toilet. Oh, man. But in the wintertime, though, and at nighttime, though, they would not take us out in the nighttime.
Yeah.
They would not. We'd have what they call a little pail over there. and that's where we would go. But never at night they'd take us out in that cold weather. They already prepared something for us as little ones, me and my sister. Well, I was little one time. I was about 3 feet tall one time. That's when I lived with my grandparents. But when we came in out of the cold, though, she'd always have something warm for us. And we wouldn't, they'd be out there maybe not even an hour, because that's how cold it was back then when I was growing up. Temperatures were probably minus 35 below zero. Because, like I said, we lived on an island. We were surrounded by water. We were always being hit by winter storms. And it was cold. And yet yet our grandparents still provided for us little ones in that house and kept us warm, kept us drinking some nice warm stuff. And that was the beauty of it, right? Today, I hate to say it this way, but I am going to say it because I want to be honest here, right? Some people are so pampered.
Mm.
They are pampered. Every little thing they ask for, they get. Me, I'm still struggling trying to build my shed outside. Where am I going to get the money? Well, I have a little bit of money left, I won the lottery. $10, and I'm happy. But growing up, we talk about preparing in the fall, and that's what I remember being told is that the old folks, they'd have the elders come. In some communities, they still have elders that still practice that teaching about offering that tobacco to your garden, to that garden, the spirit of the garden, spirit of our mother, the earth, and to the great spirit, our creator. And when I think about a lot of those things, how come I didn't really grow up with that? Like I grew up in an alcoholic world. Most of my life was, most of my days maybe were dark because I don't remember some of the things I did. But I'm here for a reason. I don't know why. But I'm not going to question that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody will say, "Hey, Neil, will you sing for me?" Yeah, I'll sing for you, but I'll send you the invoice later. They actually believe I'm going to send them an invoice, some of them, because I can keep a straight face. But sometimes somebody said one time a while ago, and this was quite a while back, and I like fooling around. I like joking around with people and making sure that they're laughable, that they laugh, because that's some of our people are lacking that now. That laughter, they're really lacking laughter. One day I was asked, "Are you ever going to be serious?" I was told. I said, "What?" Kind of looked at them, kind of a little bit of funny, right? Not cross-eyed funny, but just looked at them. I said to them, finally, I stopped and I said to them, I said, if you want me to be serious, I can be like you, I said. I can actually be like you and say the same things you say. That's how serious I can be if you want me to. Yeah, right, he says. So I started. The first thing I said to him, I'm not going to say it here because it wouldn't be nice to say that. But I started using his words, and they were the swearing words. The first words that come out of his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed like that for probably 10 minutes. Well, am I serious enough for you now? I said. I said to him, finally, at the end of my conversation with him, I said to him, you know that the new language now, there's a new language that is being brought up in our communities, I said. Not only this community, but other communities. Profanity is the first language.
Mm-hmm.
Profanity is the first language. English is the second. And our own language is third. He never said a thing. Never said a thing to me. I said to him, now, do you think I'm serious enough? A couple of days later, I met up with him again. Oh, you want me to be serious? He says, no, because you get too serious. I said, there you are. Now you know why I want to be happy, because there's too many serious people here. The only serious thing I want to, when our parents way back in the day growing up were serious, they were serious about taking care of their family.
Mm-hmm.
They were serious about going to cut wood. The women were serious in preparing the preserves and everything that was needed for the winter. That was their seriousness. And that's what you call life. Providing life for your family. It's not about who knows more. It's not about who knows less. It's about all of us knowing all those things together to become like this. That's who we are. My good friends down in the Six Nations. My good friends up in the Sioux area. That's my family. That's my family. If I learn from them, I'm glad, I'm happy. But we all got to learn how to laugh again. We got to let some of that seriousness go and be happier and do the things like I do, crazy things, having fun. And that's the beauty of it. And that's what our people used to do too. When all their work was done, everything was ready for the winter. They'd be laughing. Somebody would be playing the piano. They'd have their little what do you call those bees, I guess they'd have, where they gather together in a house and they'd eat and have fun. That's the time, in that winter times, having that fun and telling all these stories, singing songs, dancing. Oh, by the way, I'm a tabletop dancer. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
You remember, do you?
I remember. But see, this is it. This is the whole process of life, right? We have to use this thing in here, this thing sitting on our shoulders. We have to start thinking about us first, myself, before I can start thinking about other things. Because I can sit here tomorrow and say, okay, now I got to get ready. What do I need for the winter? Because I have my own family here in the island. I have a daughter that was just here with her 2 kids that have gone home. I have another daughter who's getting ready to move out of this house into her own house. I have another daughter that just lives down the road that she has to look after her own grandchildren because the mother can't. So I have to buy the extra. I have to buy the extra, prepare so that they have something if they need it. This will be their store. Mm-hmm. My daughter comes over here one day. She lived in town before she moved back in with me. Oh, she comes home with the little ones for the island for the weekend. And then she starts looking at my food. She, Dad, can I have some of this? Yeah, go ahead. Dad, can I take some of this? Yeah, go ahead. I said, what you're taking? 2 bags of food from my house. And she lives in town. But that's me, right? I'm looking after my children, my grandchildren. But when people call me and say, Neil, can you sing for me? Can you light a smudge for me? Can you offer me a prayer? I'll do it. I don't care where you are. I don't care who you are. I know I do care who you are. But it's just that it doesn't matter. I will do it for you anyway. because I learned that growing and moving along this path that we walk upon every day of our lives. I wish I had learned that when I was much, much younger. But now I know. When the other day when this big thunderstorm, everybody was kind of fearful for this thunderstorm that was going by because of the tornado warnings and all this other stuff that's happening. I keep saying to myself, well, it happened maybe back in the early spring when that first thunderstorm hit. And they were calling for a tornado. There were tornado warnings out, and I got my smudge bowl, filled it up with not filled it up, put some sage in it and some tobacco. I opened my window. Rain is raining, and I said to the sky, to those thunder beings that were coming across, please look after us, protect us, don't hurt us as you go by.
Yeah.
Don't hurt us as you go by. Protect the ones that I love, cared the most. And I said that, and I said that to our Creator as well, as I lifted that bowl into the sky with my smudge bowl. I did that last night. I did that twice last night. And you know what? After I did that and I laid down and I started getting sleepy, I started to shut everything down, and there was a big thunderstorm going on. I didn't even know. I slept right through it because I was being protected, because I asked for that protection. Joanna Mission, Thunderbird beings, Thunderbird, have pity upon me as you go by. Have pity on the ones that I love and I care for. Have pity for my friends who are out there as well. Those are the words I said last night to the thunder beings. Mm-hmm. Because that probably is what I do best, is to look after people when I can. When we remember those stories about our aunties and uncles from way back when I was growing up, that they put medicine in those stoves, mm-hmm. wood stoves, to protect us. And that's what they told me. And I remembered that. And I remembered it last night because I did the smudging twice out the window, my bedroom. And I felt good. And I was protecting not only me, but I was protecting the people that I care about. And that's all of you that are watching out there. Mm-hmm. My good friend that sits with me as we talk and laugh and share in our stories, my good friend Renee, she was even in that prayer. Ko'abum, ko'ekenamagwa, look after the ones that I know. Look after the ones that I don't know. Mm-hmm. That's the prayer. Then after that, like I said, I laid down, went to sleep. I fell asleep. Then, of course, I slept so well, I forgot to put my orthotics in my shoes and all this other stuff. And it happens. It happens. Anyway, that's about all I have. But I want to sing this one song, if that's okay. Mm-hmm. Is that all right with everybody? Okay. That's my political voice. Okay, this song we're going to sing is called Mungai Pungai, Jiggy Jiggy Jungai. Come on, everybody now. He began on a glory corner. 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 Joanne, we go deep on. Oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, hey.
No.
Now, what that song is saying is just that the Creator's coming to talk to you. So when He comes to talk to you, you may not know it, but you have to acknowledge it at some point. When you acknowledge our Creator, everything just falls into place. All the things that are happening now, the harvesting, preparing for the fall, preparing for the winter. He's letting you know it's time for you to come back to this road and have a good look at it. Look at it, embrace it, hold it. The other part of that is the Creator's coming to have pity on us because of what's happening with this virus. Yes, we are very resilient people. Very resilient people because we've come through many storms. I use the water as some of the teachings, and that we come over heavy seas, and we've gotten here. All of us together are in the same boat or same canoe, and we need to get back together again to start talking to each other. So that way we can talk to those that are, that need to be talked to. I've learned a lot in my short time on this path. And I've learned to love even more because that's the way I was. I wasn't raised by love. I mean, I was raised with love, but I was never told it. But now I can honestly say that I love my good friend, Renee. I love all the people I've met from the Six Nations people of the Longhouse. I love them, all the ones that I've met there. I love my Cree friends in the High North. Maybe I'll just say I love some Ojibways too. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, I love everyone. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be doing this. Because I'd probably just be memory in somebody else's life. Because our people used to talk about those things. When you pass into that spirit world, you want people to remember you as who you are, as that good person. To see that good vessel ride the storms of this life. This vessel that I walk in. Grandmother's Renee vessel that she walks in. Jody's vessel. All the people that are here gathered tonight. We have to remember that when we clasp our hands together, this is all of us. This is what it looks like, that circle. The circle of nations on Turtle Island. So remember who you are. You're part of creation. You always will be. Anyway, I got another one. I want to talk to. It's going to take about another 45 minutes if everybody will stay on. I'm gonna do my tap song. No.
Oh, you know that one too, eh?
I know that one too. Okay.
So you can tell we miss you guys. We want to say hello to all our relatives, all our friends, and everyone that is with us tonight. We missed you, as you can tell. We just needed you again, and I'm so grateful that you're here. And to every one of you, we send much blessings on to you, and we hope we weren't too boring, and that you were able to sit here with us. And I wish we had a wood stove, and I would have the tea on, and you would be enjoying. And we'd probably be up doing a jig with Neil. So we want to just say thank you, Miigwech. Have a beautiful evening, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I want to say thank you so much for having us back because, again, like I say, I miss a lot of people too. And I want to get out there and I want to be able to go and hug and, reconnect, reconnect through that hug. And again, like I said, it's, like we both are saying that we're very, very happy. And I'm very happy because when I go to bed tonight, I'll probably fall asleep because I've talked so much. I haven't talked that much in a long time.
I know. I was trying to pop in because we did shorten our time, but it just is flowing. And we just can't stop the flow sometimes. And I wasn't even going to come back, but I ended up sitting and listening, and I was just drawn in, much like the people that have left some beautiful messages for both of you that you can look at later. And
How do I get to look at them?
they're right on your screen right now. If you look to the right of your screen, it says comments, and it should be right there on your screen. Maybe you could put your glasses on.
Oh, yeah, right. There you go. Okay, I see. Aha! There you are.
Aha, right? I know you. Anyway, this is just, it's really beautiful. You said so many things that resonated with me, and I just have to, just acknowledge that, I've said before that my life changed when I met Grandma Renee, because, just understanding more about my culture, and just, hearing stories about life and how I want to live my life. And what resonated with me today was the feeling, how I felt when I first came on, was everything that you talked about, Uncle, about, just maybe not having your head on, or like, being present. I needed to be here and get here. And I got here, and I could feel my body was catching up, like everything was catching up, because I knew I had to be here tonight. And then my heart just opened as you spoke about, what's really important, and preparing yourself and your family. And it's just really meaningful to have this time together, and I'm just really grateful. And you really did just speak about everything that's happening right now, I think, for so many people. And we're here and ready to prepare ourselves for, the new season, the cooler weather. And coming up, in a couple of weeks is, a day that I think that we need to commemorate or honor, and I think it's just going to be ongoing for the children that never returned home, and the survivors who continue to share their experiences with the nation, that really, I think, is just really leaving so many people so, I think, horrified, and learning how to just digest it and move forward in a good way. And you just talked about love this evening, reminded us how to support each other. And I'm just really grateful for the two of you, and for everyone that joined us today. So, in saying that, we are, as Grandmother's Voice, and some of our elders and supporters are hosting some of the residential school survivors from the Mohawk Institute Indian Residential School, which is also known as Woodland Cultural Center, which now they're also known as Mushhole Voices. But they are the group that started We Are Still Here, and they're our elders, and we wanted to just really honor them on the 30th. And I think that that's going to be a great way to make them feel happy as Uncle Neil and Grandmother Renee are today. And so, sending love to everyone who's here, sending love to the two of you who have just lifted my spirit. I'm very grateful and thankful for you both. Love you.
I love you.
But, oh, see you next month. Watch the
What?
date. Forgot
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Next month.